Imagine living in a time when opportunities were limited, especially for women, and every step toward change seemed impossible. It was into this scenario that Lucia emerged, a determined young woman who decided to transform her reality and that of everyone around her. Her story is not just a sequence of events, but a true lesson in courage, faith, and perseverance, capable of inspiring even today. By learning about her life, we realize that it's not just about looking at the past, but about seeing the present with new eyes, understanding that anyone can create a legacy that spans generations. And perhaps that's precisely why her journey remains so relevant. Lucia didn't let herself be shaped by difficulties, but used each obstacle as a ladder that took her even further. She shows us that, even in the face of prejudice and seemingly insurmountable barriers, it is possible to believe, fight, and overcome. Her life is like a beacon, illuminating not only the path of those who knew her, but also of all of us who hear her story today. As we delve into this narrative, we will discover not only who Lucia was, but also profound lessons that can transform the way we face the challenges in our own lives. Therefore, I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video, because every detail of this extraordinary woman's life will amaze you. From humble beginnings to the impact she left on the world, Lucia's journey is an invitation to reflect on our own mission. Prepare yourself for a story that not only moves, but also awakens the courage to act, to believe, and to leave a positive mark on the world. This is not just a biography. It is a call to all who desire to live with purpose. From a young age, Lucia experienced what many fear: the absence of her parents. Imagine being a child without that daily hug, without the voice to guide her path. She could have withdrawn, chosen resentment, but she chose another path, that of faith. With each step inside her town's church, she found not only silence, but refuge that gave her strength to face life. And herein lies the first great lesson. In the face of loss, there is always a chance to transform pain into fuel. Have you ever noticed how some people, even in the midst of great difficulties, manage to flourish? Lucia's choice teaches us that when the ground seems to be falling away, it's possible to find support in something greater. For her, it was faith. For you, it could be discipline, reading good books, or even practicing meditation. Simple but powerful examples. Reading Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl can help give purpose to pain. Practicing daily gratitude can brighten even the darkest days. Lucia didn't have sophisticated resources, but she had something no one could take away: the determination to transform fragility into strength. It's like taking a tiny seed and believing that from it a whole tree could grow. And with each visit to that small temple, she not only prayed, but built an invisible fortress within herself. This fortress, which seemed invisible to human eyes, will be the foundation for her entire future journey. The curious thing is that, without realizing it, that girl was preparing for something great, something no one could have foreseen. It is precisely at this point that life surprises us. Often, what begins in silence, hidden from the spotlight, becomes a foundation of a greater calling. And it was precisely in this silence that the next chapter of Lucia's life began to unfold. In her youth, while many sought distractions and followed the expectations of time, Lucia cultivated something rare: the sensitivity to hear her inner voice. It wasn't a spectacular calling with extraordinary signs, but a discreet invitation, born of silence and prayer. She learned that when the heart is still, life begins to reveal directions that the rush of the world hides. This is a lesson that applies to us all. Instead of waiting for ready-made answers, it is in retreat that great paths emerge. How many times, amidst the noise, have you felt the need to stop and listen to what your own soul wants to say? This calling didn't distance her from the world. On the contrary, it awakened an ever-deepening compassion in her. Looking at the poor, the sick, and especially the girls without access to education, Lucia realized that her mission was not just personal, but collective. It is at this point that we understand the greatness of silence. It doesn't isolate us. It connects us with a broader vision of life. Small examples today can translate this principle: dedicating a few minutes to daily silence, writing about your concerns in a journal, or even walking without headphones, simply observing the world. These simple gestures can open space for answers that were previously muffled to emerge. This is how Lucia grew stronger. She didn't have grandiose plans, but she trusted that each step of obedience would open new horizons. This docility to the inner voice shaped her character, giving her maturity far beyond her years. When the invitation to a greater mission arrived, she would already be prepared, even without imagining it. This is the most fascinating point. When you are willing to listen and act in the smallest ways, God, or life itself, begins to prepare the ground for great transformations. And it was precisely this silent preparation that led her to the encounter that would change everything. The arrival of a visionary bishop who would see in Lucia much more than an ordinary young woman. Lucia's life took a new direction when she crossed paths with a man whose vision transcended the limits of his time, a bishop who believed that education was not a privilege, but a right, including for women. At a time when girls rarely had access to education, this idea seemed too bold, and that's precisely where the story became extraordinary. Seeing the young woman's dedication, purity of heart, and intelligence, the bishop found in her the missing piece to make a dream a reality. This encounter was no coincidence. It was destiny in motion. Think for a moment. How often do key people enter our lives and, without us realizing it, change everything forever? That bishop's visionary gaze saw not just a young orphan, but a future leader, capable of inspiring other girls and transforming entire communities. This detail teaches us something powerful. We are not defined by the conditions that surround us, but by how we respond to opportunities. When someone believes in you, it's like placing a torch in your hands. But it's up to you to decide whether to let it go out or to use it to illuminate. In Lucia's case, the flame was lit and never went out. Practical examples today show how this happens again. A teacher who sees talent where no one else did, a mentor who encourages, or even a friend who believes when everyone doubts. This encounter was not just an isolated incident, but a turning point in her journey. The bishop's support and trust awakened in Lucia an even deeper sense of purpose. It was not enough to live her faith internally. It needed to be translated into concrete action. It was at this moment that she began to take steps few would dare, taking on risks and responsibilities far beyond her years. This is a portrait of a true calling. It doesn't leave us complacent. It pushes us beyond our comfort zone. And so it was that Lucia, alongside this visionary bishop, began writing one of the most defining chapters of her life, the founding of a work that would change the future of many women. Founding something new always carries risks, even more so when it involves challenging entrenched mindsets. Lucia, driven by her trust in her inner calling and the bishop's encouragement, dared to take a step that many would consider impossible, creating a work focused on the education and development of girls at a time when this seemed unthinkable. It wasn't just about opening doors to knowledge, but about breaking down cultural and social barriers that limited women's futures. This bold gesture reveals that when someone decides to act courageously, they not only transform their own lives, but also open paths that others would never have imagined. How many of today's achievements exist only because someone, in the past, dared to question that this can't be done? This unprecedented work was not born of abundant resources or political support, but of unwavering faith and the certainty that every small action could yield immense results. Lucia united efforts, taught with simplicity, and demonstrated that education was not a luxury, but the foundation of dignity. And here is a practical principle we can apply. You don't have to wait until you have everything to begin. It is in the act of beginning that opportunities arise. Think of someone who begins a project with little, a teacher who teaches in a garage, an entrepreneur who starts with minimal resources, and with consistency, transforms the small into something great. This is the same spirit that moved Lucia. The founding of this work was not only a milestone for her community, but also a clear message. The impossible is only that which has not yet been attempted. With each girl who received instruction, with each life transformed, the impact multiplied in invisible ripples that transcended the present. This is a power of boldness. It inspires, infects, and bears fruit that not even an initiator can measure. Lucia's gesture shows that great movements in history begin with small acts of courage, sustained by faith and perseverance. And it was thus, with this unprecedented boldness, that she established her name in history, paving the way for a legacy that would endure. No great mission advances without facing resistance, and Lucia was no different. As her work grew, so did the difficulties, a lack of resources, the incomprehension of many, and even opposition from those who refused to see women receiving education. Each trial seemed like an insurmountable wall, but it was precisely in these moments that her faith became most evident. Instead of retreating, Lucia strengthened her resolve, remembering that true strength lies not in the absence of challenges, but in the ability to overcome them. With each barrier she faced, she discovered a new dimension of trust in God, transforming obstacles into stepping stones to move forward. These trials not only tested her resilience, but also shaped her character. It was as if the fire of hardship further purified her spirit, enabling her to inspire others through her own actions. How many of us, faced with pressure, give up right away? Lucia, on the contrary, saw struggles as an opportunity to grow, to draw closer to her purpose. This principle is timely. When life tests us, we have the chance to choose between being crushed by circumstances or strengthened by them. And each choice builds, little by little, the destiny we are writing. What is most remarkable is that, amidst so much adversity, Lucia not only kept her faith alive, but also transmitted it to everyone around her. Her words and actions were a testament to the fact that trusting God is not theory, but daily practice, especially in the darkest moments. This steadfastness did not eliminate difficulties, but gave them meaning, transforming pain into learning and loss into an opportunity for renewal. Looking at her journey, we realize that trials were not interruptions in her mission, but necessary chapters that revealed the greatness of her calling. It was in the midst of the storm that her light shone most brightly. When we look at Lucia's life, we see not just a personal story, but a legacy that transcended the limits of her time and continues to inspire today. The fruit of her work was not only the education of countless girls, but the transformation of an entire mindset, which began to see the value of education and feminine dignity. Her example proves that one's true impact is not measured solely by immediate results, but by the ability to plant seeds that flourish in future generations. Every child who learned to read, every young person who found new perspective on life, became part of this legacy that has endured through time. The spiritual aspect of her legacy is even deeper. Lucia didn't just offer academic knowledge, but also formed people for life, transmitting values of faith, courage, and perseverance. This spiritual legacy is like a flame that continues to burn, illuminating the hearts of those who seek to live with purpose. Her life shows that education without faith can instruct the mind, but it is faith that shapes character and sustains human beings in the face of the greatest trials. Therefore, her mission remains alive, because it was built not only on methods, but on an unshakable trust in God. And herein lies the great lesson. Legacies are not made of fine words, but consistent actions that leave their mark on the world. Lucia's name continues to be remembered because she dared to believe, persevered through hardship, and dedicated her life to a greater purpose. This is the invitation her story extends to us, to live in such a way that, even after we're gone, our actions continue to resonate in the lives of others. Lucia's legacy is not tied to the past. It is a call to the present, for each of us to build, day after day, a story worth remembering. Lucia's life shows us that the impossible can be achieved when faith combines with courage and purpose. From an ordinary young woman was born an extraordinary woman who transformed the reality around her and left marks that time has not been able to erase. Her journey is proof that it is not the environment we are born into that defines who we will be, but rather the inner strength we cultivate and the vision we carry in our hearts. Facing obstacles, prejudices, and limitations, she teaches us that there are no insurmountable barriers for those who walk hand in hand with God and keep their eyes fixed on the future they wish to build. But what's most impressive is that her legacy wasn't limited to the past. It lives on as a daily invitation to refuse to accept a mediocre life marked by giving up. Lucia calls us, through her example, to persist, to believe in the purpose that moves us, and to fight even when everything seems contrary. Her story resonates within each of us like a question we cannot ignore. Are we living in a way that leave a positive mark on the world, just as she did? This reflection is a point that connects us to her life and inspires us to take firmer steps toward what we believe in. Therefore, as we conclude this narrative, it's not just about remembering Lucia, but about letting her story inspire our own. May we look at our difficulties with new eyes, seeing them not as the end, but as an opportunity to grow. May we learn to transform trials into stepping stones, faith into strength, and purpose into action. The final message is clear. The world needs men and women who, like Lucia, are unafraid to believe, to act, and to leave a legacy that continues to enlighten generations. Destiny is not something distant. It begins with the choices we make today. And now I ask you, what have you been doing with your own story? Are you simply living life as it comes? Or are you building a legacy that will resonate far beyond your lifetime? Lucia's journey challenges us to look within ourselves and realize that every choice, no matter how small, can transform not only our future, but also that of many others. And perhaps this is the greatest calling her life leaves us, to not waste the opportunity to write a story that truly makes a difference. If this message resonated with you, get ready, because in the next video we will delve into another equally impactful narrative, which will reveal powerful lessons to transform your outlook on life. After all, stories like Lucia's are told not just to be remembered, but to awaken in us the courage to live with faith, purpose, and determination. So don't forget, every step you take can be the beginning of something much greater.